Left of the box. Largest school board in Ontario under fire after field trip to downtown protest.
What do we want?
It's a plea for help
What do we want?
to the streets of downtown Toronto. Supporters of the residents of Grassy Narrows First Nation north of Kenora calling on governments to provide safe drinking water for people who live there.
I've covered this story before because the citizens of Grassy Narrows are actually suing the provincial and federal government. I have that clipped. So just go to my videos and look for it and you can get a lot more information on this particular story. But this video will go into it a little bit detail as well, just to give you a general sense of what the people in Grassy Narrows have been dealing with for decades.
We have to ensure drinking water for Indigenous communities is clean so that kids can play in their water, they can drink their water, they can shower, they can make meals, and they don't have to worry about getting sick and poisoned.
Mercury contamination at Grassy Narrows dates back to the 1960s and 70s. The Dryden paper mill dumped roughly 9 tons of mercury into the local river system.
So this has been an issue for longer than I've been alive, by a lot. Generations of families have been dealing with this.
University research shows there is contamination happening to this day.
I traveled 1,800 kilometers to come here to voice, the injustice that's happened to my community.
Chrissy Isaac was a small child when the problem was first identified.
Why is it taken over 50 years to be heard? And we have to keep doing these things to get heard.
Some want the mill shut down. Almost everyone here says governments need to step up and do something meaningful.
So you notice here, we got Kafia. They were just chanting free Palestine. It sounded like, there's a lot of crossover with people fighting colonialism here and support for people fighting colonialism in other areas of the world.
Do something meaningful for the 1,000 residents.
Both the province and the feds to fund all the projects adequately, and we need to get every person in Grassy compensated.
This is important for our future generations and for our elders and our youth to come together and stand up for what's right in solidarity.
Access to safe drinking water is considered a right in Canada, but those at Grassy Narrows say they're not treated like everyone else.
We're Native people, and because we're far away, they don't see us as...
Again, you can notice in the background there's a lot of people also wearing keffiyehs during this action, which is where a lot of the upset was coming from. Because I think if this was just a protest rally for Grassy Narrows, a lot of the people who were crying foul wouldn't be crying foul so much.
Important as a city, the folks of Toronto and the southern area.
And the consequences for the community's population.
We lost a lot of people to suicide because of what mercury does to the brain. Right now, the lifespan for people in Grassy is 50 to 60 years. We don't get to live as long as the rest of people in Canada.
Some recent studies have shown that between 80 and 90% of residents at Grassy Narrows have some form of poisoning issues, cognitive delays, numbness in their fingers and toes, and mental health issues that they're dealing with. Anthony?
Students at a number of Toronto District School Board schools were given permission to head to a day of action for the people of Grassy Narrows First Nation on Wednesday, whose community river was impacted by years of mercury poisoning. The board said a trip to view a protest by Grassy Narrows that had promised to attract thousands outside Queen's Park was an educational experience for students to hear from Indigenous voices about the ongoing challenges faced by people of Grassy Narrows. Some parents and other groups, wonder who those other groups would be, however, complained that the trip veered away from education and into protest and activism. How dare kids say that there should be clean drinking water? I've been to many protests in my life, and if this was not a protest, I will eat my hat, a mother of a child at East Toronto School told Chorus Entertainment. So I think I know what kind of protest she's been to. Oh no, here we go. There were people in masks because, you know, pandemic. People donning keffiyehs. Oh no, keffiyehs. Showing signs about Israel-Gaza war. This was a protest, and it was not in the messaging that teachers put on information to parents about what they were doing. Now you see, it's entirely possible the teachers ahead of time had no idea that there'd be a lot of crossover because, you know, why would they know? But from what I've seen online and what I know, Indigenous folks here are very, very outspoken about what's happening in Gaza and calling it what it is, in a genocide, and are very supportive of the Palestinians being slaughtered because it is in their colonial project and they can relate. So quite often, you know, at events for Indigenous folks, you'll also see keffiyehs and support for Palestinians. Not shocking, but apparently to some people it was. So suddenly now this wasn't just a protest or an information session about clean drinking water at the Grassy Narrows. Oh, no, no, no. This got into protesting colonialism, and we can't have that. No. The school board itself admitted the event had not played out as expected and said an internal review would take place. We understand that the issue beyond the main focus of this event were raised in that some students may have been negatively impacted by what they saw and heard, TDSB said in a statement. Negatively impacted? So they're not talking about the Grassy Narrows situation because they're not, you know, worried about children being horrified at the fact that you have an entire community being poisoned with mercury and have no clean drinking water. That's not what they're worried about. They're worried about people might have seen a keffiyeh, might have seen a sign that says Free Palestine, and that would have a negative impact on them. The TDSB was not aware that students would engage with any issue outside of the main focus, and we apologize for the harm that some students may have experienced as a result. At this time, we are supporting impacted students and their families. Oh, the harm of calling out a genocide. The field trip has been met with fierce criticism from some, and Ontario Education Minister Jill Dunlop has weighed in. I'm deeply disappointed by yesterday's event, Dunlop wrote in a social media post. Compromising the security and safety of students is unacceptable. I guarantee you none of their safety was compromised in this. None. I expect the TDSB to conduct a thorough review of the situation and ensure accountability with parents and students to prevent further incidents of showing humanity. Friends of Simone Something Center, a prominent Jewish group, also called for a detailed review to be launched by the school board. FSWC was immediately in communication with the TDSB leadership, expressing outrage over this egregious violation of parental trust and harm caused to students, the group said in a statement Friday. So how much of this article actually has to do with Grassy Narrows? But all this is a whiny piece of how dare these kids get exposed to people speaking out against genocide. This is nothing more than a bunch of Zionists making this protest run by people from Grassy Narrows about them. You know, it's Zionists saying this is more about us than them, you know, whatever's happening with their water, whatever. But you know what? Kids might have saw a keffiyeh. That's what we're concerned about. The water issue, whatever. But they might have seen a keffiyeh. The TDSB said it remained committed to education on truth and reconciliation. Well, you might want to work on the truth part there, because the truth of it is there's a genocide happening in Gaza. But would review its trip procedures. It also said that the students should not, in general, be participating in protests as part of a school trip. Now, again, I actually believe that when they sent the kids off to see the thing about Grassy Narrows, they had no idea that it would turn into a protest that would involve what's happening in Gaza. because people are dunce. You know, they're not paying attention. They don't know what's happening. They're not paying attention to what Indigenous folks are talking about, and they're not paying attention to the colonial settler system and how that's being, you know, protested and all that sort of stuff. So, of course, Jesse Brown, well-known Zionist and editor at Canada Land, said a Jewish girl in Toronto was taken on a public school field trip to protest, where she had to wear a blue shirt to identify her as a colonizer. During anti-Israel chants, she objected. Her teacher told her, "You'll get over it." And he's quoting a piece from the Toronto Sun. Now, I've kind of said, like, the National Post is like Ben Shapiro, and the Toronto Sun is like Steven Crowder. The Toronto Sun is a rag piece that is just, you can't trust what they say. And here's Jesse Brown, an editor at Canada Land, saying, oh no, she was told to wear a blue shirt as a colonizer. Let's see, what is this about again? Grassy Narrows. Now, what is happening in Grassy Narrows? Oh, right. There was an issue about water. And what color usually represents water? That would be blue. That would be blue. The serfs. Students were asked to wear blue because it was a clean water protest, you absolute clown. They weren't told to wear blue to identify themselves as a colonizer, but to support justice for Grassy Narrows. Note that color there? That color would be blue. Marching, this is from elementary teachers of Toronto, marching in the streets with students, parents, and teachers united in our demand for justice. For free, grassy, clean water is a human right. We're here to ensure right is honored for communities. Together, we can create a future where every child thrives with clean water and air. So you're going to see a lot of orange shirts, and that's to represent Indigenous children in particular. There's Reconciliation Day is coming up. But also, the blue was, you know, to represent the water. The water. And as this Twitter account points out, my goodness, children as young as 8 brought by teachers to a political event carrying signs clearly made in advance, waving flags, wearing the same colors, chanting slogans, and taking sides, even giving interviews to the media. How did we all miss this? And what is he referring to? This was from a while ago. A while ago. And I forgot how insanely quiet this video is, so please listen hard to it.
Here at home, a major show of support today for the people of Ukraine from younger residents of Toronto. Students.
Okay, so this is a protest in support of the people of Ukraine that students from schools were taken to with pre-made signs, colors to wear, and banners. There was no outrage about this.
From younger residents of Toronto.
Students holding a rally at Nathan Phillips Square. CTV's Beth McDonnell reports.
Singing for peace. Hundreds of students from 3 Ukrainian immersion schools in Toronto rallied at Nathan Phillips Square, calling for an end to the war in Ukraine.
You need to make peace, not war. Because I have family, everyone has a family in Ukraine. And they should not be suffering. They should be living in peace.
Standing side by side.
So it's fine to say that about the people in Ukraine, but heaven forbid you say that about anyone in Gaza. But yeah, this is again just the hypocrisy of the media. This is Zionists trying to make it about themselves. It's all gross. It's gross. It's gross. So annoying. But yeah, it's just, here is a very important message from Indigenous folks about what's happening in Grassy Narrows. And here's a bunch of Zionists saying, how dare you also try to bring attention to a genocide that, you know, Israel's committing.